So, pag
Okay.
ganito, ko pipirma.
We will now start this afternoon's Rotary's meeting. And I'd like to, of course, welcome all the Rotarians and guests. I am George Barcelon. I'll be the moderator for this afternoon event. Before we start, I'd like to go through some of the house rules that we follow. These are the protocols. Please be advised that microphones of non-program participants will be muted to help keep the background noise to a minimum. Secondly, may we request the visiting Rotarians and guests to please type in the comment box your name, your club or affiliations, or the Rotarians who invited you to participate in this meeting so we can properly acknowledge you later in the program. And third, for our open forum after the talk of the speaker, in case you want to ask questions, please use the raise hand button or simply notify us by typing in the comment box. Alternatively, you may want to type in your questions and we will try to accommodate it during the question and answers portion. And lastly, please don't leave yet after the response of our presidents, as we will have our group photo up with our speaker. Okay. With that being cleared, now we will go to the meeting proper. And the first to call to order will be our life-changing president, Rotary Club of Makati, President Louis Aseoche.
Thank you, George. In behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati, I call this meeting to order.
The next in line to call the meeting to order would be LCP Gilbert Hidalgo, President of RC Bay.
Bay.
Is President Gilbert on board? Here it is. Yeah.
Again, thanks, George.
Yes.
In behalf of Rotary Club of Bay, I call this meeting to order.
Good, thank you. The last but not the least to call the meeting to order is past President Raisa Hechanova Posadas, RCM Premier District.
Yes, hi. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati Premier District, I call this meeting to order.
Thank you. Now we will have the invocation. Our invocator would be President-elect Marilisa Tiksay, RC Bay.
Here, here. Thank you, God, for the opportunity to meet. Please help us to come together to make these Rotary clubs reflect your kingdom. Breathe life into our ideas and decisions. Help us build a team that has love and respect at its core. Give us strength to continue working for your kingdom in this time of the pandemic.
I think she's been muted.
I'm sorry. Here, here.
Yes.
Thank you,
You're
God.
clear now.
Thank you, God, for the opportunity to meet. Please help us to come together to make these Rotary clubs reflect your kingdom. Breathe life into our ideas and decisions. Help us build a team that has love and respect at its core. Give us strength to continue working for your kingdom in this time of the pandemic. Lord, come, give us the inspiration to be the best we can be. May we be this shining example of your goodness and truth within, wherever we are. Inspire our thoughts, discussions, and ideas, and continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Thank you very much for that inspiring invocations, Marjace. Now we will have the Philippine National Anthem. And may I request all to put your right hand on your chest as a show of respect and our allegiance. Now we will have the RC Makati hymn.
We're the Rotary Club of Makati, and together we stand proud. We are leaders with integrity, always ready to serve humanity, always living by the four-way test, building goodwill and peace along the way, giving hope to the world. We're the Rotary Club of Makati, prepared to aid our fellow men, as through Rotarians we live to lead. We believe in service above self, and this is why we succeed. We're the Rotary Club of Makati, and together we stand proud. We are leaders with integrity, always ready to serve humanity, always living by the four-way test, building goodwill and peace along the way, giving hope to the world. We're the Rotary Club of Makati, giving hope to the world. The Rotary Club of Makati.
Thank you very much for singing our hymn with gusto. Now we go to our tradition of the four-way test. And we have Rotarian Mike Advani, RCM Premier District. Rotarian Mike?
My mom did before.
Are they allowed to unmute? I think maybe. I think you cannot unmute. Can you unmute?
Ron, can you unmute Rotarian Mike Advani?
Yes, he can unmute. Actually, we're trying to unmute him.
Okay.
I think he's not yet. Is he in right now?
So
Is
I
he
saw
on
him
board?
earlier. I saw him there.
Okay. We'll give him a minute to for him to put himself on.
Advani? I don't think he's here.
He was here earlier. Maybe you could just go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think he's here. Yeah, okay.
Risa, why don't you be the one?
George, you may want to do the four-way test.
Yeah,
first.
I will just do the four-way test. The four-way test. The things we think, say, or do.
Kind to him or going to be tough?
First, they said the truth.
Is it the
Second,
truth?
is it fair to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third, would it build goodwill and better friendships?
Will it build
And fourth-
goodwill and better friendships?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you very much. Now we will have the greetings of birthday and wedding anniversary celebrators. We have Rotarians birthday in October. We have past President Eddie Yap, October 13. We have Raquel Kelly Davis, October 14, RCM PD. We have Attorney Severino Sumulong, October 16. And we have past President Roger Davis, October 17. And for the Rotary aunts, we have Army Jimenez, October 18. And I believe we have our singers. I don't know how many, to greet them with their with the happy birthday song.
No, we
Is
don't
it
sing
Reggie?
anymore.
We don't sing anymore? Okay.
Yeah, let's dispense
Okay.
with the singing for.
Okay. Now we will go to the next, which is the introduction to the visiting Rotarians and guests. I believe their names will be flashed on screen.
Check your Viber, George.
Yeah, I checked. I checked with the Ron. I don't have any yet. Is it sent to my Viber, Ron?
Sent by Viber, by Angie.
Mhm. Probably we'll just have to greet them from here.
There's a missed call, but I don't think. He told me he's going to send it to me a while ago. Well, here's the list of people that we would like to acknowledge. The VIP, the dignitaries, is past District Governor Tony Kila, past District Governor Peps Bengson, past District Governor Eduardo Chua Kokyong, and PAG Noel Acuico. And the life-changing president with us this afternoon is RC Makati Southwest, Leth Malapat, and RC Parañaque, San Dionisio, Jenny Delgado, RC Makati Greenbelt, Adela Manzano, and RC Alabang Danghari, Jake Parcon. And Rotary aunts who are with us, we have first aunt, Tess Aceoche, and Marilu Alejandro, Nelly Bengkon, Yvonne Kuan, and Lou Limhoko. And our guest, and we welcome you from RC Malabon. We have President Ernesto Sia, past President Cesar Tan, past President Ernesto Ancheta, past President Jarvis Chua, past President Alex Yanko, past President Michael Raimundo, and PN Tomas Domingo. And from NEDA, we have Nika Joy Boknalbal, Ryan Kalubat, Louis Limkin, Sigi Mariano, Ramon Rakit, Aika Rivera, and Carla Yu. And other guests with us this afternoon, we have Rico Ancok, Sherwin Briones, Romel Bulalacao, Michael Cabalda, Arsenino Chua, David Chua, Enrique Chua, Joaquin Co, Andy Co, past President Nicole Daniel, Rotary Club of Las Piñas West, Anya Del Rosario, Annie D, Tristan Dumlao, Marisa Go, Wilson Go, Pelino Tingan, Anthony Philip Nocom, Erwin Perez, Charilu Puno, James Rosca, Marilyn Rodriguez, Bob Boy C, Wilson C, Stephanie Wee, Gia Veloso, and lastly, Leo Verata. Did I miss anybody? Yeah, that's the complete list. So we welcome you this afternoon joining this meeting. Now we will have the portion of the signing of renewal system agreement with Rotary Club Malabon.
Let me go to this.
And the participants are, Ron, I don't have the names of the participants who will be signing this renewal of sisterhood.
Well, I'm supposed to sign this with my classmate LCP Ernesto Sia of the Rotary Club of Malabon. Is
Okay.
he here? Is he here now? Can you spotlight him, Ron? Hi.
Good afternoon.
Dr.
Yes,
Tres.
hi,
Tres.
Yeah. We're now in the portion of the signing ceremony of the renewal of sisterhood agreement with Rotary Club of Makati and Rotary Club of Malabon. We have here President Louis Afeocha, President representing Rotary Club of Makati, and LCP President Ernesto Sia, the Rotary Club of Malabon.
So, okay, I'll be signing this.
Just raise your, the documents.
There you go.
How about a big hand? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we give time to the President's time. We have LCP Louis Asioche of RC Makati.
Thank you again, George. So last week, Director Ferdy Ordovesa and Jay Savage joined me on a visit to the Books Across the Seas warehouse in Baeza, Novaliches to see how things are going in terms of book distribution. BATS is under the umbrella of Community Service Aid, chaired by Ferdy Ordovesa, while Jay Savage is the project's longtime chairman and now an advisor. Allow me now to share the RCM Makati video news of our visit last week.
Sa open forum wala lang.
One of the longest-running project of Rotary Club of Makati, the Books Across the Seas, which was started in 1988, has provided text and reference books to schools all over the country, with priority to those in far-flung areas and those damaged by natural disasters like typhoons, floods, landslides, and earthquakes. The books have helped develop a love of books among students and a culture of reading in schools, and provided materials to help teachers upgrade their methods of instruction and school administrators sharpen their management skills. Today, October 6, President Louis Asioche, together with Director Ferdy Ordovesa and longtime advisor Jay Savage, visited the warehouse in Novaliches, Quezon City to check on the available books for donation, review some procedures, and make plans toward the future of the project. The 900 square meter warehouse, which is located at the Asia Brewery compound in Baeza, Novaliches, Quezon City, is a support given by Allied Bank at the onset of the project as storage area of the books, together with an initial seed capital of 1 million. With over 50,000 brand new books available in the warehouse, President Louis made a call for other Rotary clubs and organizations to partner with RC Makati in the book distribution.
If you wish to partner with us in terms of distributing these books to library beneficiaries and school beneficiaries, all you have to do is just make a token donation of 10 pesos per book. This is also in partnership with Brothers Brother Foundation. So as you can see, we still have so many books here, and all for the taking. Like this one. This big book will only cost 10 pesos. So pay a visit to us here at Novaliches for the warehouse, or better yet, get in touch with our secretariat for the details. Thank you.
The Books Across the Seas project has already distributed over 15 million books to over 65,000 schools and libraries nationwide.
So this book distribution project of ours has been running for 23 since 1988, during which time we have given away over 15 million books to some 65,000 schools and libraries across the country in partnership with the Brothers Brother Foundation. We still have a current inventory of 50,000 text and reference books in the warehouse ready to be released to other Rotary clubs and other organizations for a token donation of only 10 pesos per book. We want to get these books in the hands of our target end users like students and teachers to help expand their knowledge and deepen their desire for learning and for reading. Requests may be caused to our secretary by sending an email to rcm3830@gmail.com. On district news, Governor Georgie Tan has just created the Polio Plus Society, or the PPS, which is the district's latest push to get Rotary's End Polio Now campaign closer to the finish line. Our club has helped push this End Polio Now campaign, and 42 of our members signed up as charter members with their $100 donation to the Polio Plus Fund this Rotary year and for every year thereafter. I thank these 42 charter members for their support. We are also making a pitch and inviting the 77 other members in our club who have not yet signed up to take up the second option for participation. A donation of only $10 this year to the PPS to help jumpstart the fundraising campaign. Your participation will make RC Makati a 100% PPS giving club. $10, guys, is just small change, just 500 pesos. But it will go a long way in pushing Rotary's lofty goal of eradicating polio once and for all. Polio cases have been reduced by 99.9% worldwide since 1988, but we must continue with our efforts to eradicate the disease for good. Because if polio is not fully eradicated, we could see a probable global resurgence of the disease. Lastly, the Philippines has been chosen to be the venue of one of Rotary's presidential conferences this Rotary year with our very own district 30 host. This event will be held virtually for 3 days from November 26 to 28. To support this event, which would be the biggest virtual event in Asia Pacific, the board of Rotary Club of Makati during its meeting last week approved the payment of registration of all our 120 members to achieve 100% registration for the event. To fully enjoy the event, we will be setting up a viewing conference, which can also serve as our fellowship at the third floor of our clubhouse for the duration of the 3-day conference. Lunch and snacks will be served, but health protocols will be observed. We do not know yet how many the IATF would allow for dine-ins in November, but the viewing fellowship will be open to all our members and aunts who will call in first to reserve. We shall announce the details a week before November 26. That'll be all for us, George. You're on mute, George.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you very much, President Louis, for the for your president's time. The next will be President LCP Gilbert Hidalgo of RC Bay.
Good morning, fellow Rotarians and guests. Good afternoon, rather. For the Rotary Club of Bay, on October 16, we're going to have an online seminar targeting female senior students. The seminar is about cybersecurity. Its title is cybersecurity amidst COVID-19 pandemic. It's about educating students on how they can protect their their online classes, and they can defend their uh, their online platform during the we are targeting 300 participants among 4 high schools here in municipality of Bae, and it's going to be on October 16 at 2 p.m. Also on October 20th, we're going to have planting, gardening at Galvez National High School. It's going to be a part of the Brigada Escuela activities. We're going to donate seedlings, vegetable seedlings, and also provide seeds to the senior students who's going to plant the seeds in their own homes. Also, it's very timely that classmate Louis discussed about the book distribution project. We are partnering with again Galvez National High School as part of their Brigada Pagbasa. We are going to build a small library in the community. We are partnering with the Barangay San Isidro. Its target is to encourage those out of school youth to read. So with this, we're going to contact probably classmate Louis with about the books. We have already gathered some donations. Our charter president, CP Ino Lansigan, already had donated books. That would be all for our club.
Okay, thank you very much, President Gilbert. The next we have President's Time by PP Raisa Chanova Posadas, RCM Premier District. Raisa?
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. I'd like to thank Louis, President Louis again for inviting our club to be a joint in this meeting today. I think this is about the 10th or 12th joint meeting already between our two clubs. So you're our mother club. And it's wonderful to be back here and see a lot of familiar faces. And I'd like to, on a personal note, just thank Louis again and the club for all the support and prayers during my dad's passing. He was a member of your club. So today I'm speaking on behalf of life-changing President Rina Lopez, who is unable to join us today because she is actually speaking right now at the Management Association of the Philippines in her capacity as president of Knowledge Channel Foundation. So, so she's unable to join us at this time. So in the interest of time, I'd just like to make a few announcements. First is that on October 22, we are gonna have a joint meeting with the Rotary Club of Makati Dasmariñas and Rotary Club of Makati Central. And our speaker is Congresswoman Lauren Legarda, who is the Deputy Speaker and representative of the Lone District of Antique. Lauren is an old friend of our club. A lot of us are actually her classmates. And she'll be speaking, I know she spoke about a month ago with some clubs, but this time she will be speaking on the state of the environment amidst the pandemic. So this is basically an update of the previous talk that she gave, which was more in terms of, I guess, the state of the environment at that time. No? Secondly, so that's October 22 at 12 noon. On November 20, please join us. We have a fundraising concert. Last year, we were able to supply about 200, almost 250 tablets to public school children. And we would like to continue doing that this year, given that we are the only country in the world that has not gone back yet to face-to-face classes. No? So we want to support the kids in their learning and also support some teachers and schools who until now still don't have high-speed printers as well as, or even laptops or desktops to be able to teach using the printed modules. No? So this is an all-star cast concert. We have Martin Rivera, we have Jaja Padilla, we have Christian Bautista, we have Morissette. I hope you've all heard of Morissette. If you haven't heard of her yet, then that means you're not in. You have to just Google her. And you know, some of her songs on YouTube actually have had 150 million likes. And in fact, in one of the songs, which is actually just a cover of an American artist, she actually had more likes than the original singer that they had to bring down her cover video, cover song on that. No, we also have Inner Voice, which is a fantastic band. And we also have Nicole Laurel Asensio. So just from her name, you can see that music is in her genes. She is the granddaughter of Celia Diaz Laurel, as well as the granddaughter of Fides Asensio. So you can just imagine her musical skills. And we also have Ivan Neri, who is a tenor. And some of you that may have had joined us at my parents' house for one of the dinners, Ivan has performed several times. No? So he's an excellent tenor who sings like an Andrea Bocelli or Josh Groban. So please join us. The tickets are very, very reasonable. It's 8 p.m. on November 20. And then finally, on December 14, we have Dr. Mingita Padilla, who is also another classmate and batchmate of ours, of some of our members from our club. And some of you may have heard of Mingita in the past 2 years. She's been very, very active as a person being consulted on COVID and things like that. No? So she will be speaking on December 14 at around noontime. So please join us at that time. Thank you very much. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isa. That entertainment event seems to be something that one wouldn't want to miss.
Yes,
Thank
please
you.
join us.
Okay. Well, today is one of the better, well-attended days for our Rotary. We have more than 100, we're 115. And we're all excited to hear from our guest speaker this afternoon. But before that, he will be properly introduced by Rotarian Leo Pirata of RCM Premier District. Leo?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody is well and having a good day. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished guest today, the Director General of the National Economic Development Authority, Secretary Karl Kendrick Chua. This is a distinct pleasure and honor for me, as I have known Sec Karl for almost 30 years of my life, from long ago when we were in grade school together and assigned as roommates on a Beijing summer program. At the time, I was a raucous 13-year-old and Karl a year or two older than me. Karl had the poor fortune of being assigned to keep me out of trouble, but we got along very well, and I always looked up to Karl as a responsible, diligent kuya whose affability and easy demeanor always carried with it a deep intelligence that everyone respected. The great heights that Sec Karl has achieved and the immensely important position that he's been given in government come as no surprise, as Karl is really one of the most diligent, straight-shooting, congenial, and brilliant economic stars best suited for the job. A man who no less than the president has recognized as one of the best and brightest in the country. Sec Karl was chosen in the midst of the pandemic crisis for the Herculean task of taking the reins of NEDA and actively implementing its prioritized socio-economic programs such as the National ID System, the Economic Recovery Plan, and the Build, Build, Build infrastructure program, which will be the long-term legacy of this administration. The Chinese have a saying, work first, argue later. Whereas others may have approached governance in an intellectual or academic fashion, Sec Karl approached the job as a man of action and has successfully implemented these critical programs, which are essential to the development of the country. Sec Karl is a man who speaks softly and carries a big stick. During his tenure in DOF, he was Undersecretary for the Strategy, Economics, and Results Group and helped the government implement its 10-point socio-economic agenda by ensuring equitable and sustainable financing through the comprehensive tax reform program. Sec Karl was also tasked with leading the tax reform team to work with Congress to pass the tax reform for acceleration and inclusion law. As Undersecretary, Karl was also critical in the passage of three pieces of legislation, increasing excise taxes on sin products such as tobacco, alcohol, and e-cigarettes to fund the Universal Healthcare Program. Prior to joining the government, he was the World Bank's senior country economist for the Philippines, and in this capacity advised the government on strategies and policies to attain more inclusive growth, the type that creates more and better jobs and reduces poverty. While in the World Bank, Karl spent 1.5 years working on Mindanao, where he led a team to conduct in-depth research for the 2016 Mindanao Jobs Report, a comprehensive strategy for the island group's development. Sec Karl was with the World Bank for 12 years from 2004 to 2016. Sec Karl completed his master's in economics in 2003 and PhD in economics in 2011 at the University of Philippines School of Economics. Prior to joining the World Bank in 2004, he was assistant professorial lecturer of mathematics and economics at the Ateneo de Manila University, where he completed his BS in management engineering in 2000. Sec Karl was named one of the 10 outstanding young men and women in January 2019 by the Junior Chamber International Philippines. Without further ado, I am happy to present to you one of the brightest minds of my generation and the country's esteemed Chief for Socio-Economic Planning, Secretary Karl Kendrick Chua.
Thank you very much, Leo, and you described me far too much. I hope I will live up to that description. Good afternoon to the Rotary Club of Makati. Good afternoon to your president, LCP Louis Asioche, LCP Gilbert Hidalgo, our past president, Raisa Echanova, Mr. George Barcelon.
Hello.
Good afternoon to all the members.
Hi.
Let me also say good evening. My dad from Canada, I think I saw him, Mr. Arsenio Chua is listening. I'm sure my mom probably is also listening beside. I think it's 11:30 p.m. already. So thank you for attending, Daddy and Mommy. May I also greet his classmates who have invited me to this forum, Mr. Washington Lu, Mr. Johnny C., Mr. Tony Lopez. I think there are several others that I may not have fully greeted. They actually were to celebrate their 50th anniversary from their high school graduation in March of 2020, but COVID struck. So I'm trying to give back some of my time to make sure that they and all of you will be informed. Let me now proceed to my presentation. So today I will give everyone some update on the Philippine economic recovery. It's not a very easy job for me, but someone has to also paint objectively what is happening. So let me begin with the recent developments in the first 3 quarters of 2021. Philippine economic growth is beginning to recover, but sustainability will depend on the actions we take in dealing with the virus. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, we were growing by 6 to 7%. That is a very good track record. and we were about to become an upper middle income country where China and Thailand are today. Unfortunately, we did not expect COVID-19 to appear before us in early 2020. Our GDP, our economic growth fell to minus 17%. But as we learned to manage the risk from the virus, we gradually improved upon our growth. We achieved an 11.8% positive growth after 5 quarters of negative growth. In the first half of 2021, our average growth was a positive 3.7, and we very much hope to achieve at least 4 to 5% growth by the end of the year. Let me now go to some of the details. What is good about this year in 2021 is manufacturing activity is recovering very well. The red line is the manufacturing volume of production index in 2020. That is the red line. The blue line is the volume of production index for 2021. Notice that we are close to the 100 or the baseline index. And this is a far bigger or a very good improvement from the very low numbers that we see in the second to third quarter of last year. So there is much hope that we will see positive growth for this year, given these numbers. From an international perspective, our exports of electronics is seeing better, much better prospects. Again, the red line is last year, the blue line is this year. Whenever it reaches 50% or more, then there are more orders than what we are producing, which is a very good sign. But whenever it goes below 50, then there are less orders than what we are producing. So this is a good sign that at least one of our biggest sectors is doing relatively well or improving. Now let us look at exports. We are also seeing positive growth of merchandise exports. The latest number is 13% growth from last year's minus 9%. This is also a good sign as other countries recover, particularly in East Asia, Europe, then we are able to export more of our products. Notice that last year, we were mostly in the red, negative. Now let's go to imports. Our imports also from negative last year is also in very good positive territory. The latest number in July is positive 24% growth from minus 21% last year. This is a very good sign because we only import for either capital equipment to fund our investment program, or we import for consumption, which also means the economy and the people's consumption are recovering. So this is another good news. Of course, in the papers or media, there could be different angles, but this is what the data is telling us. Now let's go to capital outlay of the government. This is mostly infrastructure spending. Last year, we went down to 170 billion peso of infrastructure spending in the second quarter. In this year, the blue line, we are able to increase that by more than 100 billion to 282 billion, despite the ECQ that we felt last April. As you know, one of our policy right now is whether you are in ECQ or not, construction continues, even for housing and small projects, provided you can follow the health standards. Let me also talk about what the people tell us. We always we do a monthly survey of employment. From a peak of 17.6% unemployment last year, our unemployment rate has gone down to the latest number, 8.1%, less than half of what we saw in the peak last year. Our average unemployment rate prior to COVID in the red line in January, February, March was 5.3. So we are not very far from the normal, but of course we want to do better. And the next indicator that I want to share is underemployment. The people who have worked but they want to earn more because they are not earning enough. The red line you see, underemployment went as high as 18.9% in the second quarter. So that is April, May, June. Today, the latest number as of August, the blue line, is 14.7%. This is around the same level as the pre-COVID days of 14.8 in the first quarter of 2020. So in other words, we are gradually recovering to levels that are normal. But of course, 14.7 underemployment rate is not good, because what that means is around 15% or 15 out of 100 workers are not happy with their pay and they would like to work more. Now, in terms of job creation, every time we enter into a heightened quarantine like ECQ, the one in red, we lose a lot of jobs. For instance, from January 2020, the normal quarter, we lost 8.7 million jobs when we measured unemployment or job creation again in April of 2020. And every time we relax to GCQ, that is the yellow, we created jobs. What is very nice to note is that in the last 2 quarters or 2 months of the year, 2021, we saw a different pattern. In between June and July of 2021, when the Delta variant surge was starting, we lost 3.4 million jobs. But half of that is agriculture and was driven by weather disturbances. But notice that during August 2021, it was ECQ and MECQ. We did not lose jobs. We in fact added 2.6 million jobs. This is a strong indication of 2 things. Number one, the ECQ that we call this year is different from last year. The ECQ this year allows almost all sectors to work except those that are in amusement, those that require you to remove your mask, or like in restaurants, dine in, or when you have to be in physical closeness, for instance, in the barber shop. But everyone else we allowed to work. We allowed the public transport to operate. We allowed all workers to work even at night. No curfew is imposed on them. So that is the reason why we were able to create jobs in August 2021. The other reason is people just need to work. And sometimes the IATF will need to reflect if the policies that we have, which is focusing only on COVID mitigation, is adequate. I think going forward, we should have a broader policy of being concerned not only about COVID risk, but non-COVID risks, such as hunger, all their cancer and diabetes and treatment that they need, and the loss of income. The good news is, from the start of the quarantine to today, we were able to create 1.7 million jobs. Of course, we hope it is higher, and we hope the quality is better. But this is to say that the economy is recovering. We, of course, want to do more and more every day. Now, another indicator that we track is the visit to the public transportation stations, bus stops, LRT, MRT. Last year, we fell by 80%, disaster. This year, we are just down by 22%, the latest. But notice that it is, despite the ECQ in the last 1 or 2 months, more and more people continue to safely go to work. In other words, they can take care of themselves and we can get the economy restarted. Now, we also looked at the actual visits to the workplaces, those who actually go to the office. Last year, we were down by up to 80%. The latest, it's only down by 20%. So this is another indication that the economy is recovering. We, of course, want it to be better. That is why we are recalibrating our policy to avoid large area lockdowns and focusing on granular lockdowns. And it is working because we are seeing the cases falling and the hospitals did not collapse. Now, let us go to inflation. Another economic variable that we always measure is inflation. We are concerned about this because it is like a general tax. The higher the inflation, everyone's income gets eroded. This year, our inflation is up. The latest is 4.8% in September. It was 2.4% last year. We are seeing two major drivers of this inflation. One is pork. The other is international fuel prices. And you have seen the pump price go up recently. In NCR, actually, the inflation is within the central bank's 2 to 4% target. The main reason for this is we are able to import enough pork to complement the supply gap. However, in the provinces or outside NCR, it is much higher. So what we need to do is to, because of the African swine fever, our pork supply has been severely diminished. We are importing temporarily. That is helping bring down prices in NCR, but we need to widen the marketing and distribution of these important food items. And we are also very mindful about the other food prices. We are monitoring them and doing preemptive policy to ensure that inflation will not spike. Let me just show you the, this is the inflation of pork. Last year, when the crisis started, it was hardly felt. But gradually, by the end of December of 2020, pork inflation was 32%. In 2021, the blue line, it reached a high of 58%, but we were able to reduce this by 80% because of the executive orders that allowed us to temporarily lower the tariff and increase the import volume so that we can plug a temporary supply problem. However, the government's priority is not to import. It is a temporary solution while we help the local livestock sector recover. That is our strategy. Now let me go to recent developments on the Delta variant. By the way, I will characterize our economic history according to two eras, BC and AD. BC is before COVID. That was the year 2019 when we had one of the best years in our economic history. Then COVID came. So now we are facing the Delta variant, a very contagious. I call the period we are now AD, after Delta, how we will live with this virus. So this is the case load, NCR and Philippines, Philippines in blue, NCR in red. Notice that cases are falling, but still high. But in NCR, we are actually doing quite well. Outside NCR, we still need to work on that. Notice also when the government decided to reopen the economy last October 12, all the way to Christmas season, we did not see any spike. It means that we can open the economy safely without having a spike because the management of the spike is really on our personal adherence to the health standards. So over the coming quarters and years, I think we will see some spikes once in a while, like when you have a flu season, and we will have to live with it, take our vaccine, get boosters when it's available, and move on. That is, I think, how this whole virus will be evolving from a pandemic to an endemic, meaning it's part of our lives, we have to live with it, and move on and go back to work and be productive while ensuring that you follow the health standards. So that is where I think we are headed. So that is why we are recalibrating our policy. As of the latest, 66% of the economy is in heightened quarantine, meaning GCQ with restrictions, or in the case of NCR, alert level 4 and up. Sadly, 22.3 million workers are affected. We will do better in the coming days or weeks so that we can have our last quarter, especially towards the Christmas holiday season, much better for everyone. Fortunately, we are doing well on the inoculation of the vaccine. Our main problem is the supply from the global suppliers. But once they are here, we are able to fast track the inoculation. 26 million have been administered as first dose, 23 million have completed the second dose. This is a very good sign. In fact, at the peak, we can inject 500,000 people per day. And once the supply comes, we will continue and continue. In NCR, I understand we are 75% complete. In other major cities in Davao and Cebu, I think we are 30 to 50% complete. And the goal is to inoculate as many as we can, including the teenagers, which is starting already this month. Once we have this, we can send the kids back to school. Now, prospects for 2021 is encouraging. It will allow us to recover to pre-pandemic level around the end of 2022 to prevent long-term scarring and productivity losses. So this year, I think 4 to 5% is achievable. Next year, we can do better, 7 to 9%, and after that, 6 to 7%. So there are 3 enablers. Number 1, vaccinate everyone as quickly as we can, subject to the international supply. Number 2, reopen the economy, including schools. Just wear a mask, wash your hands, and maintain distance. You will be protected 95% already. The 5% is a mix of other factors like ventilation, how long you interact with other people, your comorbidities, and sometimes bad luck. Number 3, we implement the recovery package. We have already all the measures in place to recover. We have to implement them fully. Some people might think it's not enough. I just want to emphasize that number 1, nothing is free from heaven. So this money for the recovery did not come from heaven. It is from the hard work of taxpayers. So if we want to spend more, we have to finance it. And borrowing is only postponing future taxes. The other thing I want to mention is everything is a trade-off. You want to help this sector, another sector will not be helped. So we have to prioritize and find which is the most important sector to help. Now let me go to a final topic, which is the total cost of COVID on and the quarantines on the present and future generations. A while ago, I talked about today. Right now, let me talk about from today to the future. What has COVID done to our society and to our children and grandchildren's generation? So NEDA did a study in collaboration with PIDS, World Bank, ADB, and other experts. We did this study to objectively assess the cost and benefit of our actions in 2020. And the main reason for this is to guide policymaking going forward. So we found that the long-run cost of COVID and the quarantine to present and future society is 41.4 trillion pesos. In 2020, we lost 4.3 trillion. Over the next 10 to 40 years, 37 trillion sadly is lost. This is in net present value terms, meaning the value of that money in 2020. Why is it so? First, consumption and investment will likely be lower in the next 10 years because there will be less demand in the sectors that require social distancing. So if before you can fill up a movie theater or a stadium, you cannot today. Tourism, international tourism, likely to be restricted. Restaurants, you can't do 100% sit-in. Public transport, you cannot crowd and overcapacitate the trains. Of course, tax revenues will be lower. The good news is we will converge to our pre-pandemic growth path by the 10th year. In the media, it was reported that I supposedly said that we will recover after 10 years. That is not true. we will recover to pre-pandemic level by end of 2022, but we will take around 10 years to converge or to get back to our original growth path. And this 10 years is not a bad number. In fact, some countries after 20, 30, or 40 years from their crisis, they haven't even recovered. So this is a good sign that the economy is strong enough to recover. The other cause of the loss is workers' productivity will be lower due to death, illness, lack of schooling. So we measured over a 40-year period because that is your productive life from around 22 to 62 years. Go to school. If you get sick, then your productivity is lower and you won't be paid higher. So that is the general story of this finding. This is the breakdown of the table for those who are interested. 2020, 4.3 trillion loss. Next 10 to 40 years, we estimate 37 trillion. The breakdown is given. Total 41.365 trillion. Can we reduce this? Of course we can, by growing faster, by implementing the reforms and moving from a very narrow-centric approach to just reducing COVID cases to a broader approach, which is to be concerned also about the person's non-COVID sickness, their need to address hunger, joblessness, and lack of income. So this is a baseline. Of course, we can do better if we work together and implement all these policy reforms. Let me talk about let me skip this. Let me talk about education. This is very important because most of us, we are who we are today because of our education. So if the children are not going to school for 1.5 years, there is a significant loss to them and also to the parents. In school year 2020 to 2021, we did not have face-to-face learning, 100% for sure. And to our knowledge, we are the only country in East Asia that closed school for the entire year. Luckily, the evidence globally is that children are only mildly affected by COVID-19 and they rarely infect their teachers. Let me check if you can hear me because my internet's okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, let me continue. Yeah, I have niece and nephew in Canada. Their schools are open. Yes, there are cases here and there, but they're not infected or mildly infected. In the Philippines, only 3 million households or 12.5% have the children and the senior citizens living together. Originally, the idea there was that children will get the virus and pass it on to the seniors, but the data does not fully support that. Parents have lost income and enrollment declined by 1.1 million or about 5%. Sadly, reportedly, some 865 schools closed down because of lack of enrollment. Based on a US study, only online learning is only 52% as effective as face-to-face. In the Philippines, we estimate it to be 37%. So the average student is only learning 37% of what he or she could have learned if she attended school face-to-face. This is a very big cut in that child's learning and future productivity. We did a survey in NEDA. 60% of families have one parent who skipped work to teach their children, resulting in a 25% foregone income. Personally, me and my wife, we have to spend 5 hours a day in the morning helping my 6-year-old son in grade 1 go through school. And he is already studying in a very good school, but his learning is not as good as I want. You can imagine those who are in other schools with less preparation. And sadly, we have started school year 2021 with no face-to-face learning, and there is uncertainty when children will go back. Although, as a good news, there is a pilot of the face-to-face next month. So let's see if it works, then we can expand it to have more children go back to school. It's also good for them because they get sunlight, they interact, and they reduce mental stress and their reliance on iPads or tablets. I'm sure parents or grandparents have seen their children's only companion nowadays because they're locked up at the home, their tablets. Now, the consequence of face-to-face school closure are severe. Of course, over the long term, less learning, lower future income and productivity and competitiveness of our workforce. In 2018, the PISA score shows that the Philippines average was only 350. The PISA score is an international test that measures competency in math, science, and English. Singapore is 556 or a 37% difference. So you can imagine what lack of face-to-face schooling will do to our score. According to the World Bank, although we have 12 years of expected schooling, it is only equivalent to 8 years because of the lower quality. So we're working on this very hard to improve our quality. And school closure is, of course, not a way to help improve quality. Now, face-to-face school closure, I mean. According to ADB, every year of lost schooling is 10% permanent lower wages in the future. So very sad. When I was in the World Bank, I estimated it to be 7%. So this pandemic and the school closure face-to-face are already exacerbating the already unequal access to quality education in the Philippines. That is why my advocacy from the start is to get the kids back to school. Now, let me talk about the health status. As of the 10th of October, we have 2.7 million COVID cases, 75,000 critical and severe cases. Very sadly, 39,000 died. This also shows you that 97% of the people do not have COVID. They have healthier lives and can take care of themselves. But we have restricted them and their actions to go back to work far too long. The PhilHealth claims that for high burden disease such as cancer, diabetes, hypertension dropped by 75% during the pandemic. This means that they did not suddenly miraculously recover. This means that they are not getting health treatment because they have no money, they fear getting infected in the hospital. I know a friend, he has to take a prostate surgery. He deferred it more than a year now because of the fear of getting COVID. 1 in 3 children below 5 are stunted, underweight, and wasted. There are 320,000 unwanted pregnancies. And women receiving prenatal care, mostly low-income women, dropped from 99 to 61%. So you can imagine the kind of the health of the baby, given all these. Half of Filipinos workers face a mental health challenge, including myself. So you can imagine the rest, especially those who are frontliners. And 23% of workers thought about quitting their job. In the US, there is a study wherein the life expectancy is going to be 1 to 4 years shorter. This is not good because it means people will die early and they will work less. So in the Philippines, wala pa tayong estimate, but our 71 and 77 for male and female life expectancy will be lower. And therefore, you will experience forgone wages. Many people who recover from COVID, I'm sure some of you have experienced COVID, you will have other health concerns, sadly, according to the studies. Brain fog, weakness, respiratory damage, kidney damage, and so on. So that is the sad thing about this virus. After you are recovered, it lingers in other forms. Many people will unable to work because of their inability to get treatment from other disease, or they have to accompany their parents for dialysis. So lower productivity. And you have to pay more because you forgo treatment and you get more sick. So those are the reasons why the total cost of COVID is big, from the lack of productivity from both a schooling and health perspective. This is the data on PhilHealth from a researcher from PIDS. It dropped by 75%. So very sad. So ibig sabihin, people are not claiming, and the reason why they're not claiming PhilHealth counterpart is they're not getting treatment. So our recommendation to ensure strong recovery, to achieve 4 to 5% growth this year, 7 to 9% next year, we have to do 3 things: accelerate vaccination. Hopefully we reach 70 million by year end. Expand vaccination sites. I am a proponent to have the vaccination done in the schools or the workstations. Remove the barriers and use technology para bumilis yung process. In fact, I know a friend who did his vaccination in the US. Inoculate you with little by opening the economy. We are doing it already with the start of face-to-face schooling. We are lowering our alert level, hopefully by the coming week, and only localized lockdowns where we have the highest risk. As I always say, if you have ECQ or restrictive community quarantine, that does not solve the problem. It will only postpone the surge. What will reduce the surge is PDITR. We prevent, we detect, we isolate, we treat, and then we recover. So that is really how it goes. And for everyone, it is basically washing hands, wearing masks, and keeping distance. 95% that will guarantee your safety. Then we implement our recovery program, as I mentioned a while ago. We are also going to work with Congress onwards to refine our budget so that we address the deficiencies brought about by the pandemic in investment, in education, and in health. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary Karl, for the very enlightening and comprehensive report. And we would like to ask, we're very happy that Secretary Karl will be accommodating some questions and answers. There are some questions that have been prepared ahead of time, so I will just address this to Secretary Karl for him to answer. And then later on, I will check from the chat box some questions that are also very pertinent to the discussion. First question, Secretary Karl. In view of the implementation of the Mandanas ruling, wherein approximately 1 trillion pesos to be shared with the LGUs, provincial and municipalities and cities, what guidelines will NEDA provide for their respective project allocations? From what I've read, having the sharing of this revenue, that they are responsible for their healthcare, education, so on, and even infrastructure. So, Secretary, may you enlighten us on that? How the local government? Yeah.
Let me talk about first NEDA's role. Number one, I have requested or instructed one of my attached agency, the Philippine Statistical Research and Training Institute, to train all 1,500 municipalities on statistics and the basics of statistics, so that with this additional money that they get, they can do better planning. It really starts from that. Number two, I have instructed my regional offices to proactively help the LGUs in preparing plans so that, again, this additional money could be used in a better manner. We are also working with DBM on the Growth Equity Fund, wherein we will provide more targeted support to the poorer LGUs. We are also going to embark on a project called the Unique ID for Projects. Right now we have a national ID. I hope everyone has registered. If not, please go to the PhilSys registry website to register online and set an appointment. As of today, we have registered up to the biometrics capture around 32 or 33 million Filipinos. Now, that national ID is going to be your lifelong ID, and that is going to be used to transact and to get easier government services. We are also going to do the same for all projects. The moment someone thinks about a project, we will provide an ID so that we can keep track of all these projects to make sure that they are designed, prepared, implemented, and monitored well. So this is, I think, one of the contributions I would like to leave in this administration. Now, of course, there is a devolution transition plan that is being prepared. That is our way to ensure a smooth transition from national to local. This is ongoing, but rest assured that the NEDA is proactively supporting the whole process to make it as smooth as possible. Thank you.
Okay, there's another question for you, Secretary Karl. Many of the BBB build projects have not been fully implemented, especially the big projects from China, and together with other projects such as train and road. How will this affect our economic development moving forward? And do you recommend the use of PPP for future infrastructure projects? Because as of now, many of the projects are financed by ODA. Thank you.
Well, first of all, 10 years ago, our infrastructure spending was probably around 200 billion. Today, we are spending 1 trillion pesos annually since 2019, except for 2020 because of the start of the pandemic. This year, the budget is 1 trillion, next year 1 trillion, and the coming years. We are spending an equivalent of 5% of our GDP on infrastructure. 10 or 15 years ago, we were spending only less than 2%. So that is first the big picture. We are moving ahead full steam with our infrastructure projects. We have completed 12 airport projects, 446 seaport projects, 10,000 plus flood mitigation structure, 26,000 plus kilometers of road, 5,000 plus bridges. We are monitoring 112 infrastructure flagship projects. 55 are ongoing construction. Of course, some of these projects will take 10 years to build, like the subway or the major bridges. So in general, all our projects are moving at a pace much faster than our history. Now, there is some slowdown because of COVID, restrictions of the travel of experts, shipping, there are international shipping problems. So these contribute to the delay, but overall, we see our infrastructure program to be broadly on track. We are continuously working with our bilateral partners, including China, Japan, Korea, to ensure that the issues encountered in some projects are resolved and the projects are go back as on the proper path. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Karl. There's a question here that takes off from the numbers that you presented earlier. This is asked by one of our Rotarians, Bom Bilatuya. If we are growing at 6% per year, roughly in 10 years, it's 79% total growth. Are we going to catch that or simply return to pre-pandemic point and the lost growth will not be recovered?
Well, I think there is a big chance that we will converge. As I mentioned, converge means we will catch up by the 10th year. The reason for that is we started the year 2020 with a very strong economic foundation. We were about to become upper middle income country. And yes, if you grow by 6% continuously for 10 years, by the way, which we did for around 15 years, more or less, give or take, we can almost double our economy. We have done so many reforms, the tax reform, we are giving more incentives but targeted. We are soon to have the liberalization of retail trade and foreign investment and many other reforms. All these will help us grow even faster. So we have the potential to do that. Now, our threat today is a health problem. We have a strong economy. Unfortunately, the health problem restricts our economic progress. So we have to work together and address that health problem the soonest, and to move from a pandemic attitude wherein our objective is to eradicate COVID to living with it, like as if it were flu. You get it during certain seasons or the spike. You get a flu shot before the spike and a booster every year. You are likely to, of course, overcome that virus. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Carl. Another question from our Rotarian, Roland Young. This is with regard that the underground economy is prospering more than ever. So what is the impact or contributions of this new underground economy to our overall GNP growth?
The GDP covers both formal and informal economy. For the formal sector, we have surveys of establishments and enterprise. I'm sure if you are business owners, the PSA may have come to you and asked you to fill up a survey. We also conduct the labor force survey and the family income and expenditure survey, which captures the informal or the small economy. So they are together. I just don't know what is the share of the formal or informal. But we are a growing economy. There are more wage workers. So the formal sector surely is increasing compared to the informal. But I just don't know the number right now.
So thank you very much. Secretary Carl, there's a question by our past president, Rotarian past president, Raisa Posadas. This is somehow tied into the earlier question I asked. Regarding the Build program, do you think this program should be continued? While I appreciate the direct financing cost is cheaper because the borrower is the government, the flip side of this is that the Philippine government assumed risk that could have been borne by private sector under PPP program. What is the overriding considerations to balance between cheaper costs versus assuming this risk? Should government be assuming risk on roads, projects, and other infrastructure projects for the sake of cheaper cost?
Let me answer the first, then the second. Should we continue the build? The answer basically, I'll use an analogy. You want to go to Baguio, traveling on NLEX, then SCTEX, then TPLEX, or you want to take MacArthur Highway. So of course you will want to take the faster route. So yes, we should continue the build. We are still a few years or a few decades to go before we reach the infrastructure level of our neighbors. I'm sure you've seen the airport quality, the train quality, and so on. Now, financing is going to always be a mix, okay? Like ordinary investors or businessmen, you do not put all your eggs in one basket. There's always a combination of locally funded, foreign funded, and PPPs. With PPPs, we have to ensure that they are competitive, that they are really projects for the people, that they do not impose additional costs or contingent liabilities to the government. So we have a mix of that. And of course, some people might say you borrow from the cheapest source. That's if the cheapest source will have all the money to lend to you. That is why we are diversifying. We are diversifying because sometimes one country has the expertise on train, another country has an expertise on subway, another country knows how to do bridges better and so on. So the answer is we always diversify and find the best deal and deliver the projects at the least cost to the people, because we don't want projects that will just burden the people with contingent liabilities or high tariff rates, right? So that is our consideration in determining how we have a mix of both locally financed, foreign finance, and PPP projects. Thank you.
Secretary Carl, a follow-up question to that. Our national debt 2019 or end of 2018 was 8.3 something trillion. Today, we're breaching, we're on 12 trillion pesos. As you said, nothing comes for free. So what would be the solution? You mentioned earlier to grow faster, but again, as we see the prospect for the next 10 years, it's not exactly fast for us to catch up. We should be growing about maybe 8 to 9%, but I think our projection is still about 7%. What are the things that should be brought into the picture, considering that we have a national election and something that the new government can take up? Thank you.
On our, when we entered 2020, our debt to GDP ratio was 39%. I remember in the year 2003, it was 80%. So we have brought it down significantly because of two important, let me say three important elements: sound debt management, tax reform, and growing the economy. And I see this continuing after this temporary increase, because we had to borrow more because we had to help the country fund our COVID response. So I do not see it, even with 6 to 7%, it is already going to help a lot, because borrowing rates are much lower, 2 or 3%. So over time, the economic growth will outpace the growth in debt. And that is really how we bring this down gradually. And our strong fiscal management shows that this is very likely to happen, that we will bring down the debt over time.
Okay. There's a question from Makati Rotary Club Vice President Tony Lopez. Seeing that next year is going to be a national election year, and historically, election spending provides growth to the economy. Considering our current slump, will election spending be a big contributor to our growth in 2022? Secretary Carl.
Well, I really don't know the impact, but yes, historically, it contributes to the economy, to the increase in growth. I just don't know to what extent. I would imagine it will still be substantial.
Well, Secretary Carl, I did a bit of research before. I think it goes like maybe close to 0.5% GDP. So I don't know whether that's accurate or not, but definitely it would boost our economy. We have a question earlier that was posed by one of the our guests about access to vaccines, whether private sector can buy vaccines directly. I have been attending IATF meeting representing the private sector, and what I've gathered is that maybe down the line, when some of these vaccines are approved, we should remember all of the vaccines now are under EUA, Emergency Use Authorization. So most of the purchases are going between governments. And as of late, the information coming from Secretary of Finance, Secretary Sanning Dominguez, is that the country will be getting almost 185 million dosages. So that would more than cover for the adult population of our country. But if we move further, as the talk about the third shots, third jobs, maybe the country would need to acquire more vaccines abroad. With that, let me check if there are other questions that would like the Secretary to answer. Well, there's a question here. I guess this is the last questions. I just got a note from assistant. Yes. Yeah,
Hey.
Tito.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Vice President Tito Panlilio.
Secretary Karl, thank you for your presentation. It's basically a standalone presentation of how the Philippines is doing, by itself, in itself. There are no comparative figures, no? And that's why I may want to ask now is, how do you feel, Secretary Karl, when there's so many people here and abroad labeling us again as the sick man of Asia? I think I know where it's coming from, but how do you feel about it, knowing that you're in a very good position to perhaps reply and give us your own thoughts when we are called the sick man of Asia once again? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tito, for the question. It boils down to what the data really says. So, every day I encounter analysts within the country, outside the country. They are associated with big corporate names. They come up with reports. But, in the end, it is really how you see the data and what consistent story you can make out of it. Sometimes, as you mentioned, we cannot just be static. We have to look at the context where the Philippines is coming from. For instance, most countries are not going to grow 6% even after the pandemic. Why? Because their population is aging. I can see the Philippines growing 6% or more for 30 more years. So everything is based on the context and the perspective. Yes, we are doing quite bad last year because of our very restrictive quarantine. That is why we revamped our classification this year. Notice when we had ECQ last year, no public transport, shut down almost every economy, curfew almost everyone. The nurses cannot even go to the hospital. This year, 2 months ago when we did ECQ, all public transport open. I imagine you must have seen the street. It does not feel like ECQ, and so on. So I think everything is a more consistent appreciation of the data, the context, and the perspective on where we are headed. Once I think I brief international audience. After briefing them, some of them understand better. So I hope that will be a way to get people to understand the Philippines better. Definitely, we are not perfect, but I have a program of reforms in line to help our country recover, and that is important. The signaling that we have a plan is, I think, important enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Karl.
George,
That wraps up
can I have a
our
follow-up question?
open forum. It's 3:30.
Yeah.
And
George, can I have a short question, George?
okay, Ricky.
Yeah.
The-
No, Secretary Karl, some people, we've been watching this Pharmally thing, no? And this is the use of government funds, no? And my question is, the finance managers, when they borrow money, is there any mechanism for them to monitor the uses of these funds? Because, of course, some people get a little worried that maybe some of the uses of the proceeds of this debt maybe are not used in in the manner we want it to be used.
Well, when we borrow money, they are not tied funds just for a purpose. They go to a general fund. So there are government institutions charged to monitor them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
George, one question lang, last, please,
Okay,
Bimbo.
sige. Okay. Cheers.
Uh,
Vice President
Thank
Dimo,
you,
go ahead.
Thank you, Secretary, for a very comprehensive report. No? However, I'm not an economist, but my understanding is we cannot improve our poverty index upward unless the agricultural sector really improves. It has been the laggard of all of our sectors. However, the solution to agriculture is production, local production. It seems like we've sacrificed that aspect of it to try to fight inflation by allowing so much importation across the board. So the supposed benefits of that supposed to bring back, first lower the prices, but bring back those funds to the agricultural sector from the increased tariffs that are collected. But there seems to be a gap there and a timing difference. So has that been measured or considered when the policy of importation as against helping or keeping production up, which also causes aggregate demand to remain high, because right now the agricultural sector, the farmers don't have buying power. So okay, maybe inflation was corrected a bit, but that also has a negative impact on their output and their ability to buy goods and services. So is that balance seriously considered? Because it seems like, yes, inflation was dampened a bit, but the biggest sector of the population, which is, I think, 30 or 40% of our population, who is agricultural oriented, is losing out on this. Comments, please.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. First of all, I agree with you. Agriculture is key to our successful structural transformation to becoming a prosperous country. No country can be prosperous by bypassing agriculture. And you are correct, it is productivity. And the way to help the farmers is to help them improve productivity. However, most farmers are poor and net consumers of food, actually. So that is one thing I want to point out. Our program is really to help improve productivity. However, when there is a crisis such as the African swine fever, and there is no way to temporarily raise supply of pork, because at the moment you raise them, you have the virus affecting other pigs, then we have to resort to temporary calibrated measures, because our mandate is not only one sector. Our mandate is 111 million Filipinos. So we are balancing that. So yes, we have raised, we have lowered the tariff so we can import more, but they are time-bound, temporary measure, because people need to eat. And in a pandemic, if you don't have income and you still have to pay high price for pork, then that is not good. Now on rice, we have a very good model. Yes, we lower the tariff on rice, but all the collection from the tariff, give it to the farmers to improve productivity. It is working. The rice price is falling, and last year, third quarter, we had a 15% increase in yield. So, but of course, we will have to give it time so that we will appreciate it more, the benefits of the policy reforms we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Karl. That is the last questions because Secretary Karl has another meeting coming up. And let us all give Secretary Karl a big hand of applause for a very good presentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next, we'll be hearing the response from the three presidents. First, to start out, is LCP Gilbert, President Gilbert of RC Bay. Go ahead, President Gilbert.
George, can we ask for copies of the presentation?
Yes, yes. We will ask, yeah.
Okay.
And then forward to our Secretariat. Yeah. Go ahead, President Gilbert.
Yes. Thank you very much, Secretary Karl, for the insight on our economy and the future of the Philippine economy. And yes, I agree with his discussion about focusing on what sector to help by reducing hunger, joblessness. He also discussed about the education. Yes, I agree with that. That we need to have a face-to-face classes. And also, I agree with what past President Vicente Mills on the agriculture sector. I think we need to focus on this because more people are getting hungry, and the solution to this is to boost the productivity.
Question and answer na.
I finished my question.
Okay. Is that all, President Gilbert?
Yes, that would be all.
Okay, thank you. And the next to respond is Past President Raisa.
Yes, at this point, I'd like to yield to Rina Lopez, who has just joined us. So Rina, please go ahead. Our President, Rina.
Yeah, thank you, Raisa. Thank you so much, Secretary Karl, for a very informative and clear presentation on the Philippines' economic path to economic recovery. It sounds very hopeful. No, I'm glad that education is really one of a big component of that. No, and I really hope that. Of course, aside from the face-to-face, that we can find a way to increase the country's spend on education to at least to 6% of GDP. But especially for teachers, digital resources, and preschool education. I think for me, those are really the ones that I feel we should really focus on. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you again for a very informative presentation.
Thank you very much, Risa, for the response. Now, the last but not the least, LCP President, Rotary Club of Makati, President Louie.
Thank you again, George. So former NEDA Secretary Shelito Habito runs his weekly column, the Philippine Daily Inquirer, entitled No Free Lunch. And a couple of months back, I ran across his column entitled Normalcy Nostalgia. He was pining for those pre-pandemic days and wrote about how the COVID-19 pandemic had affected his very own family. Normalcy nostalgia, he says, simply means going back to a person's usual everyday activities as they were before the pandemic. So normalcy nostalgia, I'm sure, is pervasive among our businessmen and even workers, most especially those in small and medium businesses. Some of them saw their businesses belly up, while others are heroically keeping theirs afloat with very meager returns. Our workers, on the other hand, are distraught and at wit's end, not knowing where they can get food on their table because either they had gone out of work or their shortened work schedules would not even suffice to fend for their families. That's why we seem to hang on every word that our guest speaker, Secretary Karl Kendrick Chua, said today, especially on a national economic recovery plan that would get this country back on its feet. That plan, in order to succeed, would depend on the government's ability to carry out his so-called three-pillar strategy, which he already mentioned in his speech. One, accelerating the vaccination program by expanding vaccination sites. Two, opening the economy safely through localized lockdowns and pilot face-to-face classes. And that he made special mention as an urgent matter. We cannot lock down our schools for so long. And three, by reprioritizing the 2021 budget towards more important programs. If such strategies are effectively carried out, then Karl Kendrick is optimistic that we can start to recover by end of 2022 or early 2023. Now that we are beginning to get caught up in the frenzy of the coming elections, the sobering presence of Secretary Karl Kendrick Chua is an assuring sight. He who is politics blind and seemed to be impervious to looming shifts in the political horizon is the one who is working hard in the government to make this normalcy nostalgia not just a wistful thing of the past. He in fact is already saying we're in AD, not Anno Domini, but after Delta. We're all itching to get back to the normal groove of things. I, for one, would like to go to the movie house once again and watch films with my family again on the widescreen. We all want our economy, our businesses to get back on track. And Secretary Karl, the prototype of an intelligent and professional public servant, which is getting to be a rarity these days, may just be the person or one of the persons who will help us close the gap soon. So thank you, Secretary Karl, for giving us your time. I read somewhere that you go to your office on bike instead of the ubiquitous SUVs that are the favorite rides of most of our public officials. You truly are an admirable young man. I wouldn't be surprised if you will be persuaded to extend your term at the NEDA. So on behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati, our aunts, our district governor, Georgie Tan, the other Rotarians from the different Rotary clubs in our district, especially my life-changing president, classmates, and all the other guests in attendance, please accept our heartfelt gratitude, and as token of our appreciation, we shall be sending you our 50th coffee table book, which contains achievements of the Rotary Club of Makati for the past 50 years, together with a bottle of wine for you to enjoy while browsing our book. Don't bike and drink at the same time. And aside from the wine in the book, please accept this plaque of appreciation. This plaque includes a replica of the steel plate that will be put on the reef bud in the Sea of Narvacan, Ilocos Sur. This is part of our Save Our Reefs project, which is in line with the Rotary 7th area of focus. This project, which began during the term of IPP Peter Manzano, would help revive and regenerate nearshore marine ecosystems, and has actually merited for our club a Gawad ng Pasasalamat Award during the 58th FishCon of the BFAR. Now, may I request everyone to open their cameras for our usual photo op with our speaker, Secretary Karl. Ron. Open camera, please.
First slide. Second slide. Third slide. Last. Okay.
So thank you. And in behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati, I adjourn this meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending this meeting.
My other classmates also should adjourn their meetings. George?
So on behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati Premier District, I adjourn this meeting.
In behalf of the Rotary Club of Bay, I adjourn this.
Thank you very much.
So meeting adjourned. Have a pleasant afternoon,
Thank you, George.
everyone. Thank you.
Nice meeting.